Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Hello, first of all, to Kitty. Hi, Kitty. This is your commission for the month of April for Patreon. I am reading the 11th part of Sunshine for you. For you, because you're wonderful, you have wonderful taste, and I hope everything is going fantastically where you currently are. I won't say. I know there's been some travel involved, so hope you're doing good. Also, hello to all of you. I'm calling you the Sunshine Peeps. There's so many of you. And you're so excited every time I read part of this book because I'm excited because it's so good. So anyway, here's the 11th part of Sunshine for all of you, but mostly for Kitty. Thank you very much. Okay. Whew. So when the alarm went off, I was almost ready to get up. The prospect of the night to come started to creep up on me almost immediately, but there were distractions. Mr. Cagney complained that his roll didn't have enough cinnamon filling at 7 a.m. Polly called at 7:15 with a head cold, and Kenny dropped a tray of dirty plates at 7:30. He'd been doing better since Mel had had his word, but he decided he'd rather do the early hours than the late ones, and this was only going to work if he got home sooner to do his homework sooner, to go to bed sooner. Not my problem, except in terms of Liz spending time helping to clean the floor instead of unloading cookie trays and muffin tins for me. Pat came in about mid-morning and penetrated my flowery hair. Thought you'd like to know, the girl from the other night. She's come round. She doesn't remember a thing from the time the sucker spoke to her waking up in the hospital the next morning. She doesn't remember the guy was a sucker. And she's fine. A little spooked, but fine. Translation. The only on-the-spot witness doesn't remember what she saw, or at least isn't saying anything. And Jesse and Theo, who were claiming the strike for soft, you don't kill vampires, of course, although most of us civvies use the term. In soft speak, you strike them. Were there only seconds after me, and before anyone else, except maybe Miss Bielowski. But it was one of those days when the coffeehouse schedule breaks down. And Charlie and Mel and Mom and I held the pieces together with our teeth. We always have at least one of these days during a 7-day or 13-day, depending on how you're counting, week. Not to mention the prospect of getting up at 3:45 on Thursday. During a 13-day week, my sense of occult oppression tightened anyway, but it had its work cut out for it. I had 45 minutes off from 10:45 to 11:30 between the usual morning baking and the beginning of the lunch rush, and almost an hour off at 3:30 while a skeleton staff got us through the late afternoon muffin and scone crowd before the more gradual dinner swell began, plus 2 or 3 with elective aspirin breaks. I went home at 9. Anyone who wanted dessert after that could have ginger pound cake or Indian pudding or chocoholia. It wasn't a night for individual fruit tarts. Fortunately, I was tired enough to sleep. Before I'd found out I was going to be working all day, I had thought I wouldn't sleep at all. By the time I got home, I knew I'd sleep, but assumed I'd get a couple of hours and be awake by midnight, waiting for something to happen. I spent some time considering what I should, wear. Because what do you wear at this occasion? This vampire in the bedroom thing was a trifle more intensely perturbing than this vampire around at all thing. Even if the disconcertingness was only happening in my mind, there was a corollary to the story about male suckers being able to keep it up indefinitely, that you had to invite them over that threshold first, too. But if they could seduce you into dying just by looking at you, then they could probably perform other seductions as well. Okay, this particular vampire declined to seduce me to death when he could have. This was a good omen as far as it went. I reminded myself that the sound of his laughter made me want to throw up, and that in sunlight he looked, well, dead. Let's get real here. I couldn't possibly be interested in... I involuntarily remembered that sense of vampire in the room. It wasn't like the pheromone haze when your eyes lock with someone else's across a room, crowded or otherwise, and wham! It really was not at all like that. But it was more like let me do that again. I got jumbled there. But it was more like that than anything else I could think of. It probably had something to do with the peak experience business. With a vampire in the room, you were sitting there expecting to die. Sex and death, right? Peak experiences. And since I didn't go in for any of the standard neck-risking pastimes, I didn't have a lot of practical knowledge of the hormone rush you get when you may be about to snuff it. Perhaps someone who loved free-fall parachuting or shark wrestling would find vampires in the room less troubling. Never mind. Let's leave it at... I love this narration so much because it's so personable and it just sounds like someone is telling you the story and it's so cool. Let's leave it that vampires infesting your private spaces are daunting. And one of the ways to boost morale is to wear carefully selected for the occasion morale-boosting clothing. I went to bed wearing my oldest, most faded flannel shirt, the bra that had looked all right in the catalog but was obviously an escapee from a down-market nursing home when it arrived, white cotton panties that had pansies on them about 700 years ago and were now a kind of mottled gray, and the jeans I usually wore for house cleaning or raking Elon's garden because they were too shabby for work even if I never came out of the bakery. Food inspector arrest on-site jeans. Oh, and fuzzy green plaid socks. was a cool night for summer, relatively. I lay down on top of the bedspread and slept through till the what? Till the alarm at 3:45. He hadn't come. What? Why? That was not one of my better days at work. I snarled at everyone who spoke to me, and snarled worse when no one snarled back. Mel, who would have, wasn't there. Mom, fortunately, didn't have time to get into a furious argument with me, so we shot a few salvos over each other's bows, and then retired to our separate harbors. We did try to stay out of each other's way, but it wasn't like Mom. It wasn't like Mom to avoid a good blazing row with her daughter when one was offered. What had she been guessing while I'd been doing my guessing? There was quite a lot in the literature of bad crosses about petty, last straw exasperations that tipped the balance. I'd been checking GlobeNet archives when I could have been reading sordid enchantments. I'm not a goddamn invalid, I howled at Charlie. I don't need to be treated with gloves and bedpans. Will you please tell me I'm being a miserable, that word I don't say because I'm a dude, and you'd like to upend a garbage bin over my head. There was a pause. Well, the idea had crossed my mind, said Charlie. I stood there, buttery fists clenched, breathing hard. Thank you, I said. Anything you want to talk about? Charlie said in his best offhand manner. I thought about it. Charlie ambled over and closed the bakery door. Doors don't get closed much at the coffee house, so when one is, you'd better not open it for anything less than a couchload of tourists who didn't book ahead, have 45 minutes for lunch before they meet their guide at the other museum, which is a 15-minute coach ride away. It's only 7 minutes on foot, but try to convince a coachload of tourists of that. They all want burgers and fries and won't look at the menu. We're not heavily into burgers, so our grill is kind of small, and we don't do fries at all except on special, when they're not what burger eaters would call fries anyway. This really happened once, and by the time Mom got through with that tour company, the president was on his knees, offering her conciliatory free luxury cruises for two in the Caribbean, or at least all future meal bookings of his tour groups when they came to New Arcadia, made well in advance. She accepted the letter, and the Earth Trek Touring Company... Oh my god, you guys... Y'all, I get this joke! The president's name is Benjamin Sisko, but I bet that wasn't one he was born with. You should see the logo on their coaches. You don't understand. Benjamin Sisko is my everything. I'm so glad that this got timed where I've already started to watch Deep Space Nine, or I wouldn't have gotten that. We could almost retire on what they brought us in August, and we taught his regular tour leaders how to find the other museum on foot. This made the coach drivers love us too. This is not what the city council had in mind when they were drooling over the prospect of seeing New Arcadia on the new post-wars map. But the other museum is why coach loads of the kind of tourists who sign up with a company called Earth Trek now come to New Arcadia. The public exhibits are still lowest common denominator, but there are more of them than there used to be, and the ghoul attack simulation is supposed to be especially good. Yucko, I say. We do have a few more prune-faced academics on teeny stipends renting rooms in Old Town, but it's nowhere as bad as I'd feared. The proles win again. Ha! The asides in this book are so great. Charlie ambled back from closing the door and sat on the stool in the corner. It wasn't so hot a day that we were going to die of being in the bakery with the ovens on and the door closed for at least 10 minutes. Because of the other night, I said, the soft guys wanted me to be kind of unofficial soft guy. Charlie said carefully, I didn't think a table knife was usual. I sighed. What did you think when you followed me out there that night? That I just lost my mind? Charlie considered this before he answered. I thought something had snapped. Yes. I didn't think it was your mind, but I didn't have much time to think. By the time I got there, it was all over. And I guess I realized then that we'd had the wrong end of the table knife all along, since I disappeared for a couple days. Yeah, it had to be the others, one way or another. Sorry, it's just the way you were. You didn't want to talk to any cops, but you really didn't want to talk to Soph. I hadn't thought it was that noticeable. You were okay with the rest of us at Charlie's, us humans, not just us, strangers too. Nervy-like, something really bad had happened, which we already knew, but okay. Anyone, pretty human. Except TV reporters, if they were human. It wasn't Weirs, because you were here on full moon nights like usual after, and they don't usually go around biting people except at the full moon. And however fidgety and whimsical I'd felt, I wouldn't have driven out to the lake alone on a full moon night. There are some Weirs out there, just like there are a few Weirs in Old Town. More than few. It doesn't hurt to be nice to them. They'll remember that you were the other 29 days of the month. Unlike suckers who tend to prefer the urban scene, the Weirs you really want to avoid mostly hang out in the wilderness. And sorry, since you didn't have any visible pieces missing, it couldn't be zombies or ghouls. I was the other expert at Charlie's. Most of the staff didn't want to know. Like most of the human population, didn't want to know. And our sauce were just customers who wore too much khaki. I don't know why I started to say that weird. Mel said stories about the others made his tattoos restless. Sadie and I thought it must be some kind of demon. Sadie talked to a couple of those specialist shrinks you wouldn't talk to, and they said this stuff can be as traumatic as it gets, and to leave you alone about it if you didn't want to talk. I wish that was the only reason for the charms and the uncharacteristic reserve. Maybe it was. Or maybe I could make it be all. I was my mother's daughter, after all. Maybe I had hidden depths of Attila the Hunness. I said cautiously, "Did she tell them about my dad?" Charlie shook his head. "I'd nearly forgotten about your dad myself, till the other night. It had never seriously occurred to me that what happened to you had anything to do with vampires. People don't get away from vampires, any more than people get rid of vampires with table knives. Even Charlie knew that much. Yeah, so that's what the softs say, too." Charlie was silent a minute. I was thinking, if Charlie had forgotten about my dad, then he must not be a part of the bad crosswatch. My mother had never told him about great-great-aunt Margaret, who had a limp because her left foot was short, horny, and cloven, and whoever great-aunt Margaret had been, and whatever demon mark they'd had. I mean, Mom was keeping her fears to herself. I told you she was brave. She'd let her parents cut her off to marry my dad. She'd taken on the blazes single-handed when she left him. Any sensible woman who was not Attila the Hun in a previous existence would have been more than justified in leaving me behind for my dad's family to cope with. And they would have. If I had gone bad, they might have denied I was theirs, but they'd have coped. And if I had gone bad, they'd have wanted to be there, performing damage control, for their sake, if not mine. She'd been doubly brave or foolhardy, and there may not have been very many blazes left before the wars, but they were formidable. Some demons are very tough, tougher than any human, although the tough ones also tend to be the stupid ones. Charlie said, "What do you want to do?" "Go on making cinnamon rolls," I said instantly. Charlie smiled faintly. "That's what I want to hear, of course." "Is it?" I said. "Do you want someone so obviously, not just some kind of freak magic handler, but someone who, I mean, with vampires, do you want someone like this, like me, making your cinnamon rolls?" "Yes," said Charlie. "Yes, you make the best cinnamon rolls, probably in the history of the world. Never mind all the rest of it. We pay taxes for Soft to take care of the others. We need you here, if you want to be here. I don't care who your dad is, or what else you can do with the table knife." "Charlie!" I looked at him. He'd have every right to fire my ass. Humans don't like weird magic handlers on the cooking staff of their restaurants. But I was a member of this family, this clan, a member of the bizarre community that was Charlie's, a key member even. I owed it to these people not to go mad, with or without an axe, and to stay alive. Charlie's Coffee House, Old Town's peculiar little beacon in the encroaching darkness. An interesting perspective on current events. "That's all right then," I said. "Good." Charlie opened the door again and ambled out. I love a book where other characters get a chance to come to life too. That they're not just there. Like, I love that. Anyway, I went to bed wearing jeans and a flannel shirt again that night. I woke at midnight, stumbled into the bathroom for a pee, tripping over the sill on the way. I went back to bed and fell asleep again immediately. The alarm went off at 3:45. He hadn't come. Why? The sense of outrage of the day before, the absurd sense of having been stood up like a teenager on our way to the prom, was gone as if it were a candle flame that had been blown out. I was worried. The fact that the wound on my breast for the past 4 days since he told me it was poison was burning like the foe had set a match to my skin was almost by the way. It was as if now I had the diagnosis, I didn't care what the diagnosis was. Knowing was enough. For a few days. I was seeping so badly I not only had to keep it bandaged, I had to change the gauze pad at least once a day. I didn't care. I did it and didn't think about it. The heavy, permanent sense of tiredness made this easier than it might have if I had been sharp and alert. The only problem was finding places to put the adhesive tape that weren't already sore from having adhesive tape put there too often already. I could have bought the surgical tape that doesn't take your skin off with it, but that would have been admitting there was a problem. I wasn't admitting anything. So the area around the slash looked peeled. The thing that really wasn't all right was that he said he'd be back, and he wasn't. Things are getting bad. If I was worried about a vampire, yeah, that is pretty surreal. Well, they were bad, and I was kind of worried. I didn't see him as the stand-you-up kind. If you could apply human guidelines to a vampire, which you couldn't. But if he'd said he'd be back, he'd be back. I was sure. And he wasn't. I had the rest of the day off after I finished the morning baking. Polly, still hoarse but no longer sneezing, came in and started on lemon lechery and marbled brown sugar cake, and I went home to comb every GlobeNet account I could find on vampire activity. Because of my peculiar hobby, I paid for a line into the Cosworld better than most home users bothered with, so I didn't have to go to the library every time I wanted the hottest new reportage on the others. If there was anything to find, I should be able to find it. When some big vampire feud came to a head, there were usually more than enough mayhem to alert even the dimmest of the news media. And maybe this was only a tiny local feud, but our media aren't among the dimmest. I couldn't believe that. This time, knowing what he knew, he wouldn't sell himself dearly if Beau had caught him again. If, that is, He hadn't come back because he'd been prevented. If I hadn't been stood up like a teenager going to the prom with a known loser, one might almost say a deadbeat. Ha ha. Deadbeat, get it? It's a pun. I couldn't find anything. See, now that's concerning. Where is he? Did he intend to not show up, or something else happened that stopped him? I'm worried. After I looked through all the local stuff, I started on the national, and then the international. The nearest report of anything that I thought, let me do that again. The nearest report of anything like what I thought I might be looking for was happening in Macedonia. I didn't think it would happen in Macedonia. I wanted to start looking up glyphs to see if I could translate mine, but I couldn't make myself be interested enough. I cleaned the apartment instead. I rearranged the piles of books to be read immediately. Altar of Darkness went on the bottom, although I dusted it first. I mopped floors. I scrubbed sinks. I baking sodaed the tea stains out of the teapot, my favorite mugs. I vacuumed. I folded laundry. I even cleaned a few windows. I hate cleaning windows. I was too tired to work this hard, but I couldn't sit still. And it was overcast outdoors, not a day that insisted I go out and lie in it. By evening, I was exhausted and slightly queasy. I had an egg and romaine sandwich on 2 slabs of my pumpernickel bread at 6 and went to bed at 7. I gave up. I wore the nightgown I'd been wearing 4 nights ago and got between the sheets. I had a little trouble going to sleep, but it was as if my thoughts were spinning so fast, or maybe it was the effect of the poison winning at last. Eventually I got dizzy and fell over into unconsciousness. Why? Why is this happening? When I woke up 3 hours later, he was there. Why? Oh my God. Darkness, sitting in my bedroom chair. Darkness, I noticed, barefoot. Couldn't remember if he'd been barefoot the other night or not. I sat up. I was too sleepy and too relieved not to tell the truth. I've been worrying about you. I figured out last time that vampires don't move when they're startled. They go stiller. He did that different kind of stillness thing. You know, I said. Concern, unease, anxiety. You said you'd come back 2 nights ago. You didn't. There's a little threat of annihilation going on, too. You know, I thought maybe you'd got into trouble. Preparations took longer than I anticipated, he said. That is all. Nothing to worry you. Nothing to worry me, I said, warming to my theme. Sure, the annihilation threat includes me, and I'm wearing a poisoned wound that is slowly killing me. I wouldn't dream of worrying about anything. Good, he said. Worry is useless. Oh, I began. I stopped. Okay, you win. Worry is useless. He stood up, tried not to clutch the bedclothes into a knot. He pulled his shirt off and dropped it on the floor. Yeek. He sat on the edge of my bed again. He had one leg folded under him and the other foot still on the floor, sitting to face me, cringing into the headboard. I thought, okay, he still has one foot on the floor, and he only took his shirt off. Do you still have the knife you transmuted? He said. That would be the best. The best what? I knew this wasn't going to have blood in it. I knew I wasn't going to like it. Oh, it was going to have blood, not wasn't, sorry. And that particular knife, of course, well, yes, I still have it. I didn't move. Show me, he said. A human might have said, what's your problem? So where is it? He just said, show me. I opened the bedside table drawer. When my jeans went in the wash, the contents of my pockets went in there. The knife was there. It was lying next to the glyph as if they were getting to know each other. The light was visible at once in the darkness. I picked up the knife and cradled it in my hand. A tiny Clement sun that happened to look like a pocket knife. In ordinary daylight or good strong electric light, it still looked like a pocket knife. I held it out toward him. This has been since that night? Yes, it happened. Do you remember, right at the end, I transmuted it again into the key of my door? Yes, pretty sure that's when it happened. It had been something in the dark colored when I pulled it out. It was something to do with making the change at night, I think. I think I'm supposed to be able to do other stuff after dark, but I did do it. I felt something crack, snap in me. And since then, it's been like this. I shifted it back to a knife the next day. Didn't notice till evening what had happened. Thought it would fade after a while. But it hasn't. Why? Why is this happening? Why? I think I'm not supposed to be able to do stuff after dark. I had done this somehow, though, and I happened to have been being held in the lap of a vampire at the time. That had been another of the things I hadn't been thinking about the last 2 months. Because if it was something to do with the vampire, this vampire, why had my knife become impregnated with light? I hadn't told anyone, shown anyone. It was very odd, finally having someone to tell. I hadn't wanted to tell anyone at the coffee house, any of the softs. When I spent the night with Mel, I was careful to keep my knife in its pocket. I was still trying to be Ray Sedon, coffee house baker, in that life. Even after I'd exposed my little secret, that it had been vampires at the lake, that I was a magic handler and a transmuter, I still hadn't wanted to tell anyone about my knife. The only person, you should forgive the term, left to tell was him, the vampire. The vampire I now agreed to ally myself with in the hopes of winning against a common enemy. It was a relief. Telling someone. Oh, I love that. I wondered what else an unknown something breaking open inside me might have let loose, besides a little radiant dye leak. I wondered if the jackknife of a bad magic cross would glow in the dark. Sure, and when I went nuts, it would transmute into a chainsaw. He looked at it, but made no attempt to touch it. That helps to explain. One of the reasons it has taken this extra time for me to come to you is that it has puzzled me that you are not weaker, having borne what you bear 2 months already. I have been seeking an explanation. Could be crucial to our effort tonight. He paused. When he went on, his voice had dropped half an octave or so, and it wasn't easy to hear to begin with, because of the weird, rough half-echo and the tonelessness. What you show me is a judgment on my arrogance. It did not occur to me to ask you for information. I have much to learn about working with anyone. For all that I believed, I had thought through what I said to you last time. I ask pardon. You ask pardon? I gaped at him. Oh, please, like I'm not sitting here half expecting you to change your mind and eat me. Oh, sorry, I forgot I'm poisonous. I suppose I'm safe after all. I get to bite the big one without your help. I'm your little friend, the deadly nightshade. But that's just it. Humans and vampires don't ally. We're implacable enemies, like cobras and mongooses. Monkeys. Why should you have thought of asking me anything? If there's going to be parting between us, it should be for lunacy and mutual. At least he didn't laugh. Very well, we shall learn together. Speaking of learning, I said, I take it you have learned what to do about this. And I gestured toward my breast. Since you're here, I've learned what will work, if anything will. And what if it doesn't work? Then both of us end our existence tonight. He said in that impassive, we're chained to the wall and the bad guys are coming voice I remember too well. Oh, gee, don't pull your punches like that. I could take the truth, really, I can. I said something like, ugh, I believe it will work. I'm delighted to hear it. Your wound is worse. Oh well, no biggie. I was a trifle preoccupied with his little revelation about our joint even more immediate than Beau impending doom. He just said he wasn't sure what he was doing. It comes and goes. Will you remove the bandage? Or you will, I thought nervously. I unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of my nightgown again and peeled the gauze away. Ouch! Of course the cut began to bleed at once. I don't suppose you want to tell me what you're going to do? Badly phrased question. No, he said. Will you please tell me what you are going to do? If you would take your knife and open the blade. Oh, shit. My heart, having tried to accustom itself to vampire in the room, began to thump uncomfortably. The knife lay between us on the bed where I had set it down. I looked at him a little oddly as I picked it up, and he, I suppose, well accustomed to bloodletting and thinking nothing of a little more or less the same, misinterpreted my look. I would prefer not to touch your knife. It will burn me, and it is better if you cut me yourself. Eek! Cut you? Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't say yeah, sorry. Yes, as you are cut. Here. And he touched the place below his collarbones. A lot less bony on him, it occurred to me. I hadn't registered it before, but he was a lot more filled out looking, generally, than he had been when we first made acquaintance. When he was half starved and all. I hadn't seen him with his shirt off 4 nights ago. Well, I could have sat there quite a while thinking ridiculous thoughts. Anything was better than thinking about the prospective hacking and hewing. A 2.5-inch blade is plenty big enough to do more damage than I wanted to be around for, but he said patiently, open the blade. Oh, my God. The knife seemed much heavier in my hand than usual, and the blade more reluctant to unfold. I snapped it open, and the blades flared silver fire. You said it would burn you, and so it will. I would appreciate if you made the cut quickly. I can't, I said, panicky. I can't cut you at all. Very well, he said. Please set the tip of it here, and he touched a spot below his right collarbone. I sat there, frozen and staring. I even raised my eyes and looked into his, green as grass, as my grandmother's ring, as my plaid socks from last night. He looked steadily back. I could feel my own blood, my poison blood, seeping slowly down my breast, staining my nightgown, dripping on the sheet. He reached out and gently closed his own hand around mine, holding the knife. He drew hand and knife toward him, set the point where he had indicated. I felt the slight give of his flesh under the blade. His hold tightened, and he gave a tiny, quick twist and jerk, and the knife point parted the skin. I felt the moment up the blade into my hand when the skin first divided under the glowing stainless steel blade, when it sank into him. There was a sound, as if I could hear that sundering of flesh, or perhaps of the undead electricity that guarded that flesh, a minute fizz or hiss. Then he drew the burning sharp edge, swiftly across his chest in a shallow arc, just like the wound on me, and pulled the knife away again. It was over in a moment. The slash he had made was deeper, and the blood raged out. I was whimpering or moaning. Oh, no, oh, no. I dropped the knife and reached toward him as if I could close that awful gash with my hands. The blood was black in the moonlight. There was so much of it, too much of it. It was hot, hot, running over my hands. Good, he said. He took my bloody hands and turned them back toward me, wiped them down the front of my poor, once white nightgown, firmly against the contours of my body, pulled my hands toward him again, smeared them across his chest, then back to press them against me, repeated this till my nightgown stuck to me, sopping, saturated, as if I had been swimming, except the wetness was his blood. I was weeping. Hush, he said. Hush. I don't understand, I said, weeping. I don't understand. This cannot be healing. It can. He said, it is. All is well. Lie back. Lie down, he said. You will sleep soon now. I lay down, bumping my head against the headboard. My tears ran down my temples and into my hair. The smell of blood was thick. Was thick and nauseating. I saw him leaning, looming over me. Felt him lie down upon me, gently, so gently, till our... What? Ah! I saw him leaning, looming over me, felt him lie down upon me gently, so gently, till our bleeding skins met with one thin, sodden layer of cotton, partially between, till the new wound in him pressed down against the old wound in me. His hair brushed my face as he bowed his head. His breath stirred my hair. Constantine, I cried, are you turning me? No, he said, I would not, and this is not that. Then what? Do not talk. Not now. Later. We can talk later. But I am so frightened, I pleaded. In the moonlight, I could see his silhouette clearly. He raised his head away from me, arching his neck backwards so our bodies remained touching. I saw him rip, quickly, neatly, his upper lip with his lower teeth, his lower lip and tongue with his upper. He bent his head to me again, and when he stopped my mouth with his blood ran across my tongue and down my throat. What the fuck? I don't even know what oh my god. I just knocked the remote down on the ground. What the hell? It was still dark when I woke. I had turned on my side. I always sleep curled up on one side or the other, but this time I was facing the room. My first thought was that I had had a terrible dream. I was alone in the bed. I looked down along my body. Gingerly, I touched my white nightgown. It had been a dream. I had imagined it. I had imagined all of it, although my nightgown felt curiously tacky, as if I'd worn it too long, although it had come out fresh out of the dryer this morning. But it was white. The sheets were white, too. No bloodstains. I had imagined it. I knew he was sitting in the chair. After 4 nights he had returned after all. I couldn't bear to look at him. Not yet. Not while the dream was so heavy on me. So shamefully heavy. What a horrible thing to dream. Even about a vampire. At least he wouldn't know that I dreamed. At least he wouldn't know. I didn't have to tell him. I sat up, and as I sat up, I felt a small, heavy something fall to a different position on top of the bedclothes. My small, shining knife, the blade still open. No. Did it work, though? I looked at him. Although the chair was in shadow, I saw him with strange clarity. The mushroomy gray skin, the impassive face, the green eyes, black hair. I knew it was nighttime. I felt it on my own skin. Why could I see as if it were daylight? It occurred to me that he wasn't wearing his shirt. No. I climbed out of bed and taken this 2 steps to... Let me do it again. I had climbed out of bed and taken the 2 steps to the chair and laid my hands on his unmarked chest before I had a chance to think, before I had a chance to tell myself not to. Laid my hands as I laid them an hour ago, a week, a century? With the blood welling out, sluicing out from the cut I had made with my knife, I touched his mouth, his untorn lips. Poor sunshine, he said under my fingers. I told you it would not be easy. I did not think how difficult the manner of it would be for you. It happened then? I said. My knees suddenly wouldn't hold me, and I sank down beside his chair. I leaned my forehead against the arm of it. What I remember, I thought it must be a dream, a shameful dream. Shameful, he said. He bent over me, took my shoulder so I had to sit up, away from the support of the chair. The top 2 buttons of my nightgown were still undone, and the edges fell open as I moved. He put one hand on my breast just below the collarbone so that it covered the width of my old wound. He left his hand there for 2 of my breaths, taking it away again, held it up, palm up, as if it might be catching my tears. As if he might, but I was dry-eyed. You are healed, he said. There was no shame in healing. I looked down, touched the place he had touched. The skin was clear and smooth. I could see it plainly. I could see plainly, too, a thin, pale scar where the wound had been, but this was a real scar. The wound was gone and would not reopen. The blood, I said. All the blood. It was clean blood, he said. for you. I was remembering the real dream I had had after I slept, the blood dream. Daylight, sunshine, grass, trees, flowers, the warmth of light, gladness to be alive. Gladness to be alive. Gladness was the wrong word. It was much simpler than that, more direct. There was no translation of sensation into a word like gladness. It was the sensation itself. Smells, sounds, tastes, all perceptions so different from anything I knew in waking life. So unequivocal, uncluttered, uncontaminated. The wide world around me seemed vast and open and immediate in a way I did not recognize. But my sense of self there was no thought to it. There was a place where all those strange, vivid sensations met. And there I was. A feeling, instinctive, responsive to me. A feeling, instinctive, responsive me, but no me on four legs. This life I dreamed, this life I borrowed, this life I knew so strangely from the inside, this life I abruptly knew that had been taken from me, it was no human life. I was remembering life as some creature. She, I knew her as she. I knew her as a grass-eater, a scenter of the breeze, and a listener with wide ears. I felt her long, lithe muscles, rough brown fur. What? Oh, I just got it! Smelled the sweet, gamey smell of her. I knew her as a runner, and a leaper, and a hider in dappled shadow. A deer? I'm guessing a doe would make more sense, because she's saying she. What? I searched for the horror of her death, for the fear and the pain, the helpless awareness of coming final darkness. I remembered waking up, sick and dazed, but with a kind of drugged tranquility, after Beau's lieutenant had used the breath on me. I looked for some equivalent in my dozed last minutes. I could not find it. Clean blood, that's what he meant. So he fed on... That's how... Oh my god. Kitty, this isn't fair. I need so much more. Oh, this book is so good. Anyway, thank you so much, Kitty. That section was incredible. Wow, she's healed. That's amazing. Okay, I got another thing to read, but thank you so much, Kitty. You're awesome. I appreciate you. And hello, all you Sunshine fans. Hello. Where's my mouse? I can't find it. Okay, here we go. Okay, see you later.